When a dying woman is saying her final words, Trump calls her. And what she does next will make you cry. Come closer, all of you. I want to see you one last time. Martha opened her eyes a little. There was a cloud of sadness in the room that only intense love could convey. Each of them was struggling to face this heartbreaking event. As she looked at their sad faces, she could feel her time running out. Clara held her mother's hands tightly, her eyes red from crying the whole night. With a whisper, her trembling voice said, "Mama, I'm here." One by one, Martha's grandchildren, son-in-law, and daughter-in-law gathered around her bed. She looked at each face, each beloved expression she had memorized and loved over the years. With her daughter Clara's hand still held tightly in her own, she turned to her family and spoke slowly, her words carrying both gravity and love. "I don't want you guys to cry for me now," she started softly. "Each and every one of you has given me more than enough joy than any mother or grandmother would have wished for. I'm grateful, but I want you to smile when you think of me, okay?" The grandchildren's tiny bodies huddled together, attempting to comprehend the seriousness of the situation. 7-year-old Amelia held a battered teddy bear close to her bosom, its fur ragged from years of affection. "Mum, is Grandma going to die?" she asked. All eyes were on her. "No, baby, don't say that. Grandma will be okay very soon," Clara said to her daughter. She looked up at her mother, the hard reality of loss clashing with the purity of wanting her mother to be well. "Well, you know, she's right. My time is up. You need to let me go," she coughed. "I have already lived my life. Now it's time for you to live yours as well." She turned to her son. "You too, David." David, Clara's younger brother, tried to put on a brave face, but his trembling lips showed how scared he was. They looked at each other, finding comfort in their shared grief. Martha breathed slowly and deliberately, with each exhalation serving as a whisper of comfort, and each inhalation as a gentle reminder of the life that pulsed within her. Every now and then, she would open her eyes and look calmly at the faces of her loved ones, a faint smile on her lips. She would mumble, barely raising her voice above a whisper, "I think it's time. I love you all so much. I hope you all know that." Her voice was weak. A range of emotions, including love, grief, and nostalgia, filled the room. Family members reminisced about special times that had shaped their lives together while sharing anecdotes. Laughter and tears mixed as they remembered Martha's unflinching character, her fiery love, and the countless lessons she had taught. Every memory they shared served to cling to the light she had brought into their lives, woven into the tapestry of their family's history. Suddenly, Clara's phone buzzed loudly, breaking through the somber quiet of the room and startling everyone. She looked down, momentarily confused. A private number. The screen continued to buzz insistently. David, who had also been crying moments before, glanced over at the phone. His voice was full of emotion as he whispered, "Who would call with a private number right now?" Clara paused. Something about the constant buzzing pulled at her, a weird sensation she couldn't get rid of, but she wasn't sure what to do. The phone kept buzzing, creating a persistent tension in the room. "I don't know," she murmured as she glanced at her family before focusing on her mother. Although Martha's eyes were half closed and her chest was rising and falling with effort, she had always been perceptive and had a sixth sense. Perhaps she would know. The phone buzzed once more. The unexpected sound seemed to stir something in Martha, whose eyes flickered open. She slowly moved her head in Clara's direction. After a long and heavy silence, Martha struggled to say 3 words. "Pick it up." Uncertain if she had heard correctly, Clara was reluctant. But when she saw that her mother was insistent on knowing the caller, she picked up the phone. Her throat was heavy. She took a deep breath as she took another look at her family, who were now all staring at her with puzzled expressions. She put the phone to her ear and slowly, almost hesitantly, tapped the screen. "Hello," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while. Then a voice that Clara had heard before broke the silence. "This is Donald Trump." Clara almost dropped the phone, her jaw hanging open in disbelief. "What?" she said in a whisper so quiet that no one could hear her. Her heart pounded in her chest in disbelief. She tightened her grip on the phone and blinked, her palm shaking. Then the voice became more urgent and clear. "It's Donald Trump. I've been trying to get in touch with Martha Johnson. Is she present?" Clara felt as if she had been thrust into an odd dream. She remained motionless, and the environment suddenly seemed unreal. She felt everyone's eyes on her, waiting for her to explain the look of disbelief on her face. Her breath raised, but no words came out of her mouth. "Clara, what is it?" David sensed that something had changed and asked in a worried tone. Slowly lowering the phone, Clara's palm trembled as she tried to process what she had just heard. The moment weighed heavily on. Her chest rose and fell as she looked at her family. Her lips moved, but as she spoke, the words felt unnatural and out of reach. "I think it's Donald Trump," she said in a raspy, almost whispery voice. Everyone stared at Clara as if she had spoken in a foreign language. "You think Donald Trump? No way." David's expression wrinkled in perplexity. Clara nodded, unsure of what to do, her heart pounding. She stumbled. He's on the line. He says he wants to speak with Mama." David shook his head, curiosity mixed with confusion, wondering why Trump would call his mother out of all people. He paced back and forth, clenching his hands and muttering, to himself. Why would he call at this time? Martha's response was obvious, though her lips barely moved, a deliberate, gradual nod. Clara knew what she had to do, and her heart sank. After wiping a tear from her face, she looked at the other family members. "Mum wants to answer the phone." Before David could say anything in protest, Martha's raspy voice broke the silence. "Put him on," she muttered, her tone filled with determination. Everyone fell silent. Her hand shaking, Clara put the phone on speaker and placed it on the table next to her mother's bed. With everyone's attention on Martha, the room grew still as they waited for what would come next. "This is Donald Trump, Mrs. Johnson. I wanted to get in touch with you." Martha opened her eyes slightly in shock at the sound of his voice. There was a fire in her gaze, a determination that had not faded with age or illness. Even though she was too frail to speak with the same vigor or sit up, the room held its breath, waiting for her next move. With astonishment hanging in the air, like a fog, the family leaned in closer. However, what she did next made everyone cry. Before illness took over, Martha had lived a life full of love, purpose, and unwavering dedication. She had taught at the neighborhood elementary school for more than 40 years, and her classroom had been a haven of warmth and wonder. Her soothing voice and caring nature had shaped the young minds of generations of children in her care. In addition to teaching reading and math, Martha had a gift for imparting life lessons, empathy, respect, and the importance of having big dreams. She was the kind of teacher who would stay after school to help a struggling child, who knew each kid's name, and who continued receiving letters from her students long after they had grown. Whenever she received gifts from her students, she would smile, a sense of pride rising in her heart as she remembered all the little faces that had looked up at her with faith and hope. Over time, however, Martha's health began to deteriorate. Small, unnoticeable symptoms started appearing, a slight ache here, a brief period of exhaustion there. Too preoccupied to think about herself, she waved them, away with a gesture of her hand. But as the months stretched into a year, her once limitless vitality began to fade. Those who knew her saw that the once invincible woman was now moving more slowly and laughing less frequently. As her health declined, Martha expressed a final wish to her family. She had always secretly cherished the desire to meet Donald Trump, even though she had never mentioned it before. She admired his ability to lead and inspire others, To make her dream come true, her family wrote letters and reached out to friends and acquaintances. They were aware of the value of time as her. Gradual decline marked each passing day, but despite their efforts, time passed with no answer. No matter how hard they tried, nothing changed. Always trying to see the bright side, they would look at Clara and say, "Maybe he's busy." When it became clear that her wish might not be fulfilled, Martha's eyes still shone with peace. But here they were, listening to Trump reaching out to her. "Hello." They heard his voice again. Martha finally spoke. Each syllable of her voice was a feeble attempt at a whisper. There was a pause, and then, with a surprise and delight no one had seen in months, Martha's eyes opened wide as she listened. The room seemed to hold its breath, and the sickly, fragile black woman who lay in that bed was temporarily transformed. Everyone's attention was captured by the glimmer of life in her eyes. It was obvious. She was talking to him, the former president. Even the faint sound of her laughter helped ease the tension in the room. Seeing his mother's face light up with happiness made David's eyes sting. As Martha spoke, her voice grew stronger.